I think every single decision that we make needs to come from a place of love, and it's not how you love pizza and not how you love your daughter or your family. When I say a place of love, it means I need to understand where uh, someone is coming from. So when I'm saying that I'm perfect, actually, I it is a philosophy of life to me because I it's hard to do it.
Hello and welcome to an all new Deep Cuts. I'm your host, Antoine Reid, and today we have a very special guest. So, today we're going to be speaking to Luciano Meirelles. We'll be speaking to Luciano about his life, how he got into cigars, and what's going on with his company today. So, let's get to today's interview. Luciano, welcome to Deep Cuts Live.
Thank you very much, Antoine. Thank you very much. I'm honored, happy to be here. Happy
Yeah,
to be with
I have, I tell people like Deep Cuts is my way of being able to speak to so many different people in the cigar industry. So we've not had a conversation up to this date, but I have been following you and your brand for quite some time. So when I was making out my wish list of people trying to make it happen this year, you were on that list. So want to thank you for coming on today, and I look forward to kind of getting to know more about you and your approach to cigars and kind of what's going on in your company, because I know a lot is going on right now.
I'm flattered that I'm on your list. We we have a very brief interaction. I think it was during the the festival, the Puro
Yes.
Sabor in Nicaragua.
Yes,
I
you
remember.
invited me out to join you at a club, I think, and I was just completely drained that night. So I was just like,
That's right.
there's no way. I'm an old person now. It's like, I don't know. It used to be that I could stay up till like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning and pop up, with 3 hours of sleep and be completely fine. But as I'm approaching the later half of my 30s now, it's like 10 o'clock. I'm just like, it's time for bed.
So definitely, you're definitely not older than I am. And to be quite honest, I think I think it was after the white party, right?
Yeah, we were at
Yes.
the
Yeah,
JC Newman
that's
was
right. That's
hosting it
right.
that night.
Yeah. Yeah, I think actually people went to a nightclub that night, which I never go. When I'm in Steli, I'm just kind of my working mode. But I had so many friends, and it was fun that night. Though I think we spent a couple hours there. It was fun. But I'm happy to be here with you, Antoine. I have always wanted to be at your show, and I hope we have a very good conversation.
Yeah, like I said, I've listened to some of your other interviews, and I like the depth that you usually go in, because some people you can tell are a little bit guarded. They don't want to get too deep into their
Yeah.
philosophy of certain things. But I like that you go beyond wrapper, binder, filler, because I tell people, as someone who's been working on the media side of the industry for 12 years now, almost 13, it's the wrapper, binder, filler stuff gets old, and I'm like, I have no idea what that even means anymore. Like, I'm not to that level where I can just read wrapper, binder, filler and automatically know what the cigar is going to taste like and if it's going to be good or not. So I like those people like yourself that go deeper and actually have a story to tell, because I can remember stories. I can't really remember, like I said, how different tobacco combinations kind of form without actually trying it. So
Yeah, I noticed like conversations about cigars are getting a little uh, more deep, and I like that. I always relate uh, the consuming habits to the success of any product. Like this, you see the wine industry, how much has developed because now people know more about wine. Now they know about the process. They learn the process, and I think the more well informed they are, uh, the better consumer they will be as well. So I think it's a trend. I think a lot of people are aware that they cannot just be shallow anymore. They have to disclose how cigars are manufactured, the purpose of a blend, and how intrinsic some things are when it comes to manufacturing cigars. And I think this is shows like yours are a huge opportunity for us to talk about it. So we should never miss the opportunity to explain to the consumer how things are done, and because therefore their clients, I mean, to the retailer, so therefore consumers will learn and will take advantage of that knowledge. So yeah, I'm a huge advocate of supplying as much information as possible.
Oh, great. So before we get into talking about the cigar part, I want to get to know you a little bit. So before tobacco, before cigars, when you were just little Luciano, what was your childhood like?
It was kind of weird. I had the privilege to be raised by my grandparents, with my uncle almost as a brother. We are just 7 years apart. So I had a very interesting childhood. I would say I traveled a lot. I had a lot of opportunities to learn different things. Um, like I said, grew up with my uncle as a brother, so he was always teasing me, and it was a very quite interesting relationship. Uh, I grew up playing basketball. School was kind of easy for me. No big drama, no issues at all. Always good grades and stuff. I always struggled with the synesthesia, so there'll be few times in school where I would just kind of do really poor. I wouldn't be able to focus and concentrate. But then I got used to kind of deal with, and yeah, I was actually I had a very good childhood. I can't complain about my childhood. I did a lot of things, man. I started very early. I could say that I was very premature when it comes to certain things, especially girls, in general. But I had a very happy childhood. Like I said, I was blessed to be raised by my grandparents, and that made a lot of difference to me. When I was born, my father was only 16 years old, and my mom was 17. So they're really young when they had me. So uh, again, I have a very good family. Grew up playing sports. Basketball was my passion. Philosophy was my passion at a very young age. Well, I always loved to learn different languages, so I always tried to learn different languages, even at a very young age too. Uh, yeah. So
So,
now, childhood, it could be like from your 2 years old to 12, 13, 14, 16. So I had a very kind of, uh, to say the least, adventurous childhood.
so what did you, since your grandparents were such big figures in your life growing
Mhm.
up, like what did they kind of teach you about life in general? Or like what did they impart on you about life that you kind of carry on and think about a lot now?
Almost everything. I think my grandmother was such a loving person. I think she was able to love people, knowing that she could be disappointed at people. She still always still chose to love regardless of the possible outcome. It's almost like uh, she preached that as a mantra. Like she said, I know that person might do this one day. I know she has this flaw. I know this, but I like her. I think she might actually do good. Like, she's always had this kind of amazing hope for people, and I definitely got that from her. I still believe in people regardless of the traumas. My grandpa, uh, we're all human beings. Like we all have, like, strengths and flaws. I think my grandpa was the best thing I can remember and thank him for is his knowledge. Like I said, I've learned different languages when I was too young, and the reason being is he would just invite me over to his office. He was a teacher, professor, uh, a very very talented man, and I would just sit down there and he would read books to me. Like, he would read long books, and for some reason I enjoyed. Now I don't have patience for audiobooks, but at that time I had my personal audiobook. So my grandpa would read to me books, and he would read in different languages. That's how I learned English, just because he used to read, American literature, English literature, or some other, books that were translated into English, and he would always uh, speak to me in a different language. So he speaks fluent French, Greek, Portuguese, English, uh, Spanish, Latin, French. I don't know how many languages he speaks. But so I think I've learned the knowledge. I think the patience, and also, as any human being, I think I inherited a lot of bad stuff from from both sides, and for the humanity that we all have. So, but those are definitely the highlights that I would say uh, to you. I think the ability to love unconditionally for my grandma, which when I say I inherited, it's not because I'm as good as she is, but she definitely influenced how I think about people. And then for my grandpa, just knowledge. So that man was a philosopher in his heart. Like, if someone would ask him a question, he could not just give the simple answer. He would give the honest answer as possible, and always filled with base and knowledge. So those are the two things that influence me the most.
So you just told us about your childhood. So obviously, when you were a child, I would think you did not intend or think that you were going to be a cigar maker, tobacco grower. So what did you kind of envision yourself doing as a child?
So it's no simple answer. I think as a child, I didn't know. I was one of those kids that I never grew up thinking like I'm gonna be a fireman. Or I'm gonna be a lawyer, or maybe a lawyer, because I had my uncle just said it was not too far from me, but when I was like 15, 16 years old, he was already a lawyer, and I always wanted to be like him. But for me, I always struggled actually to know what I was going to do. I learned something though from my grandfather, also very philosophical. He always told me like whatever is in your hands, you just do your best, kind of thing. Like whatever God provides to you, just kind of make sure you give everything you have. And that message really really stayed with me for all these years. Um, and I ended up doing so many different things. But like I remember when I was young, not finding peace about it, and I see my daughters going through the same problem as well. I remember going to one of those vocational tests that you do,
Mhm.
and I got more confused than actually, uh, you know, than elucidated. I felt like uh, I could do everything and anything, you know. So I felt like when I did the vocational test, it came up that I could be a journalist, a musician, uh, a lawyer. It came like it just made me more confused than before. And I don't think it's because I'm that kind of super talented guy. I think it was maybe because when they say when you say you play a lot of instruments, you really don't play any well. That's kind of how I felt when I was a child. Of course, I've learned that actually was part of my skill set, uh, but I felt that way. I felt like super. Uh, I felt a lot of the anxiety that many teenagers go through of not knowing exactly what they're gonna do. Well, I ended up going to business school, uh, and I found myself actually excited about creating things from scratch and building business from nothing. And so that's kind of what I ended up uh, doing on my early days after college. But on my childhood, I'll tell you, I had no clue.
So, how did you, after college and all this experience, how did you find yourself working in the tobacco industry?
Okay, so now it's going to be a big jump. I am already in 2008, almost uh, 10 years on the financial industry. Then I see myself making a lot of money and losing my family. That's how I actually remember what first kind of came to my head about the cigar industry. I thought that uh, working with cigars, I would be more present with my family. My youngest one, she almost I almost didn't see her growing. I was just kind of traveling everywhere. I was living 1 week in each country, you know, Switzerland, Dominican, São Paulo, Chicago, which was my base. But I was just traveling too much, and I actually made a huge mistake. So I was not a good father. I connected actually 2008. I just had that kind of sense of realization that I was not doing the right thing, and I just decided to get into the cigar industry and to simplify my life, make my life more simple.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course, you know, the kids grew up, and then I decided to kind of spend more time in the cigar industry and do more things. But I got into the cigar industry because of a trauma. I decided to become a better person, and the cigar industry enabled me to become a better father, a better husband. Now I don't know. Now maybe uh, I'm not sure. You know how the kids feel about that now, especially now. But they're not kids anymore. They are grown ups. But definitely, you know, I spent a lot of time in between the farms in Nicaragua, the factory, and distribution in the United States. So it's been quite an intense journey.
So, a minute ago, when you mentioned trauma, how did you learn to work with that trauma or live with it?
Uh, I don't think I'll ever learn how to deal with the type of trauma that I went to. It's something related to my family. But I did learn that certain things in life matters way more than others.
Mm-hmm.
So I've learned that actually by by doing the by by doing the right thing. Uh, when I say doing the right thing is spending more time with my daughters, spending more time with my wife, spending more time uh, doing things that actually matter. You know, that I would be way more fulfilled, way more complete, and money was not the first thing. So I was blessed that I didn't have to you know work to survive anymore at a very young age, and that kind of gave me the opportunity to do things in the cigar industry slow. When most of the people they you know they go like in this frenetic rhythm of creating a brand and then you know manufacturing cigars, eventually getting to fermentation and getting to growing tobacco. We came from the opposite side. Start to grow tobacco, then ferment tobacco, then making cigars for other brands, and then eventually, you know, developing our own products and launching them into the market. So I think what the difference was mainly um, this awareness, like I said, you know, this awareness uh, that I needed to simplify my life. I needed to spend more time with the girls and see them growing and spend more time with my wife. I was, I again, I think the trauma is that I was losing everybody, you know. I was not spending time with them. Um, and I see so many people making the same mistake. And I'm so glad, you know, at a young age, I was able to wake up. And I always relate my decision to go into the cigar industry with the simplification of life, and at the same time managing my life wisely. I think that was the breakthrough.
And I think that's interesting because if you spoke to certain people in the cigar industry, they would say, you know, getting into the cigar industry is probably the most complicated process and stress inducing. But you've seemed to found, you know, yourself in this industry and comfort in what it has to offer you.
Yeah, because you know you have to be grounded no matter industry you work. Uh, I think I hear a lot of people that, oh, I got divorced as soon as I got into the cigar industry, because the cigar industry for some of them is just kind of sales, you know. Uh, for me, it's a little different. You know, for me, it's about the product development. It's about the tobacco. It's about fermenting. It's about the development of the blend. So those things are what take most of my time. And in fact, right now when I go to Nicaragua, the first question I ask my wife is, "Want to come with me?" We have a house there, so and she's been coming with me all the time, and the girls are as well. And I have Rebecca who's working at the company, and she comes quite often as well. So uh, yeah, you just have to be grounded. You know, it's hard. It's hard. It's not easy. It's not easy to lose sight, lose track of your purposes. And but one thing I can tell you, Antoine, my purposes and my objectives are very, very clear, very, very clear. I do this because I love what I do, and it's more than that sense of accomplishment. Oh, I do because this is the passion of my life. And so, what about everybody else's life, right? What about your family? So I do this because I believe that this is uh, therapeutical for me. It's about my health as well. I found in blending uh, a safe place, one of the places that re-energizes me. One of the things that really I don't feel like I'm working when I'm blending, when I'm growing tobacco. I don't feel like I'm working. Um, but you know, there are some hardships too. You know, sometimes you have to compromise certain things, have discipline. Uh, well, not sometimes. You have to have discipline. Compromises sometimes. Compromising some other pleasures. I love to fish, for example. I haven't fished this year yet. I love to spend weekends and go to the beach with my wife. Unfortunately, you know, this year so far, I hadn't had the time to it. That type of compromising, you know, you haven't had a vacation in a long time, especially after our transition to the Shiba owned products. This is something that takes a lot of energy, a lot of work, a lot of dedication, a lot of focus. Uh, but despite that, man, I find in our industry a meaningful way to send a message, and I hope people are listening to that message. Now comes
Well,
the cue for you. And what is that message? I'm kidding.
what like? But I would think. I guess the reason I wouldn't ask that question because I would
Mhm.
think, which with each product, you might have a different message attached to it, or
Yeah.
a different story you're communicating. Like I said, a different intent for each product. Like I don't think it will be the same message for each product, each cigar that you blend, because that will get pretty one note. That will be like saying that you only have one thing to say to the world, which you don't strike me as the type of person who has just one thing to say to the world.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. It's definitely definitely anything that I do needs to have a meaning, a reason for. Uh, That's how I'm built, I guess. I we try to convey in each cigar an important message. It's always something personal, not necessarily personal to me. It could be personal to someone of my acquaintance. It could be personal between me and someone, or someone of my family, or of my business partner, or a story that I think it's important to tell. Um, so yeah, if you look at the history of our brands, there's always a reason why we name the brands the way we do, and there's always a connection also with the product, with the cigar.
And I like what you said, that, this isn't about money, because I think a lot of people sometimes get their purpose and their drive kind of mixed up with the whole, pursuit of money, pursuit of wealth, thinking that the wealth and the money is going to give, fill a gap or solve a problem for them. And it typically never does. So it's like never any like hamster wheel effort.
Yeah, there's a joke in the industry, which I don't have no idea who invented this, but I heard the first time from Ernesto Carrillo. So when I told Ernesto, I said, "Hey man, I'm thinking about making cigars," and he looked at me, how you're gonna make your first million, right? I said, "No, please tell me." So put two. When you put 2 million, you might make one. So it's like you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose half of it. So yeah, I think the very very few people, um, there's this illusion, right? That when you have because of the maybe the luxury component of cigars, people think this is a luxury product. Therefore, whoever makes them is a millionaire. And actually, having a cigar brand is so hard to really, really make money. You can make money by growing tobacco. That's true. You can make money by maybe, uh, I don't know, distributing a conglomerate of brands. Uh, or you can even make money manufacturing, outsourcing for other factories. But like having your own brand and buying cigars from factories and selling, it's tough. Some people succeed, but most of them succeed after they sell the brand, not actually, uh, you know, within the business operation.
I think
It's
I was about to say, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think
Yes,
that's so strange to me. And I've heard this outside of, in the cigar industry and outside of the cigar industry, is like building up this business and putting your heart into it for the purpose of selling it off at some point and making your money. Because I think it's like, then what? Like you put so much into it, and it's like and it's like ingrained in everything that you've done, and then you're just gonna like hand it off to somebody else who's probably not, who probably, if they're acquiring it or buying it, it's like they have a different relationship with it than with your brand and your product and the names and everything that you put into it than you do. So I always find that strange that, so many people, and it's like a business idea, like the only way you're going to make money really is the sell off at the end. But I think that's such like a sad, I understand it, but I think it's a sad like goal, in business. Like I never, it'll be like me starting Deep Cuts thinking like, hey, one day, one day somebody's going to come and buy it, and then I don't have to worry about it anymore. It's like, why even do it?
Yeah, I mean, I know that some people just get tired, and they just don't want to find a way to retire. I think some people, again, have this illusion that one day they'll sell, and it's because they're never really passionate about this. I know some guys who don't even like cigars, and they are in the business. They don't even smoke cigars. But again, I think the majority of people that are working in this industry, they have to be passionate, because again, there is I know so maybe some consumers don't believe that, maybe retailers don't believe that, but at the end of the day, very very few people make money out of this business. Very very few. and usually are conglomerates, and they make more money actually by uh, because their stock and their shares, they are being negotiated they're being traded, and they get dividends out than actually because of the business itself. So you have to be passionate about this, and that's what makes this industry beautiful. I think the majority are, they want to, and people who sell their business sometimes, in most cases, the most successful sales are the ones that don't want to sell. They actually are doing their business for years and they're happy, but then comes that huge offer that they have to take it, and then they get sad because they sold, And we have a recent trading that happened now with Alec Bradley, and I spoke to Alan, I spoke to Alec, spoke to Bradley. None of them are super like, oh man, we're so excited we're out of the business. Those guys, they are trying to find ways to stay in the business, be part of, work with. And I'm pretty sure that in the future they're gonna create and develop a new thing, like other company owners did, you know. So yeah, this industry is special, man. It's very special. I think there's a lot of goodwill in this business, and that kind of gives me hope.
So when you first started off in the industry, in the cigar industry, that is, like with the brand, you started off as Ace Prime, and then recently you rebranded to Luciano Cigars. So what was that transition like? And do you feel like why did you start in that order? Like, you would think maybe some people will want to say, I'm going to start off with my, this is my product. I'm going to start off with my name being attached to it. But you seem to do the opposite. So now it's like with this change, you're like, now I'm going to put my name on it. So what was that whole process like?
It was completely unplanned. The idea was really to kind of push Ace Prime. Then when we decided to distribute our own products, and we ruptured with our previous partners, uh, we hired a company out of DC to kind of do a study on impressions and recalls of our brand, and we realized that uh, the brand Ace Prime, first, that the cigar brands were stronger than the house of brands, than Ace Prime, which is great. That's what we wanted. The second thing is that the name that was more prevalent on not just Google search, but even during uh, sampling, that they're, marketing sampling, they call stores, in every state, and ask them, when they think of our brands, what was the top of the mind, thing, and they had options to choose. So Luciano was like the name that they memorized the most, that they had, in their head the most. And then at that time, our head of marketing was Mark Reddy, a good friend of mine who worked for a very large PR company at that time. He looked at it and said, "Man, that your company needs to be called Luciano." And I was resistant. It is still to this day very weird, but um, I think Luciano, it's becoming more and more a house of brands than actually a brand. I think now, with ATL, with Foreign Affair, with Masignos, with Fiat Lux, this is all like by Luciano, but Luciano is not the main thing. If you think about, we had the Traveler, was a limited edition. Then we have Luciano the Dreamer, which became a regular line, and that's it. So there's no other Luciano brand out there. This is the only one. I'm not saying that we're going to launch another one, which we might very soon. But we're launching other brands, and each one of these brands has a message, has an identity. So we're not so super, focused on making the branding of the house of brands the biggest thing. So we want the brands to really take on their own. And people might say, "Oh, but that's stupid," if one day you want to sell the company.
Well, I
And
mean, I don't think so.
yeah, I mean, me neither. But I'm just joking, like, because yeah, the most of the strategies to sell comes from like strengthening the house of brands. One central brand that can become so strong that one day will become part of a bigger portfolio. But it's yeah, I think it's not our call. Our call is to really create, just like you said at the beginning, send different messages to each one of the brands. Of course, you have family of brands. Luciano is one of them, and we are excited about the new products that we're putting out in the market. We just launched the Foreign Affair not too long ago, and the ATL Wise Blood, which is a great partnership that we have with those guys. So yeah, man, future's good.
So tell us a little bit more about Foreign Affair, because I know, like you said, that's one that just was introduced, I believe, at TPE.
Yeah, I see a lot of new brands, newcomers, new people who wants to develop they have a lot of energy. They want to develop a brand. They want to develop a business. And I have a different mindset, Antoine, about this. I people that work with me, no matter in what capacity, I need to see that they see hope, that they see future. I'll give an example. Like recently, I'll have three to give to you. Long-term, three examples. One was with Nidia. Nidia, she worked at our factory since the beginning. Like she's been with us for more than 12 years. And she was the cleaning lady. She was the one who come and clean our offices and make sure that the factory floor is always shiny and everything was in place. Everything was perfect. And but factory was far from her house. Then she had a kid. The kid started going to school. Uh, she was going to a special school now, and she used to be closer. So she became, making a long story short, she became almost like an assistant to me. She always had the opportunity to grow over the years, and now she takes care of our house. She takes care of all the purchases for the factory and the house. She basically became like a supervisor, a boss, who kind of oversees and hire people to do things, and like so she had a place to she had an opportunity to grow. Recently, I have a guy called Dylan who was a buncher, young buncher that learned how to bunch with us. He became one of the best bunchers. He does the estrujado, the accordion really well. Uh, it's a kid, man. But he's probably 24, 25 now. He started with us when he was like 19 years old, but he's been with us for 5 years. So he came to me 2 weeks ago, and he said, "Hey, boss, this is my last year at the university, and I need to do my internship." I said, "So, in what do you want to intern with?" He said, "Oh, I'm studying industrial engineering, but I think accounting is one of the areas that I need more knowledge the most, and I want to." So, two things I got really impressed with the kid. First, his courage to come and talk to me. Second, the fact that I knew he was studying because we helped him. And third was that he chose an area that he knew was not his strength to learn and become better. But make the story short, so now he's actually I hired him. He's not just interning, so he's making a little bit more money, and I lost that buncher. And I would say many manufacturers will look at the situation and say, "You crazy?" Especially now in STG with this, because all the butchers are fleeing the country and stuff. But if that kid loses hope and he doesn't see there's a chance for him to grow with me, he'll go to work somewhere else, and I'm gonna lose him anyways. So I'd rather have someone that I trust that's been working with us for years, you know, and grow and having a chance to grow, than anything else. But what's the connection with the brand? So I see all this people that wants to launch their own brand and stuff, and I start trying to think a little bit uh, out of the box in a sense that I have to revisit my own objectives, my own goals, right? And brand was one of them, branding. I asked myself, do I want to continue to promote new brands and visit stores and do events? And yeah, I like to do that, you know. Do I want to do this with every single brand and for the rest of my life? Do I see myself 10 years from now going to cigar shops and promoting new brands and new things? No, I don't see myself doing that. And I got to be honest with myself. So what do I see? I love to mentor. I love to kind of teach people anything, not just tobacco. I think actually it's a very selfish thing because I think the more I teach, the more I learn, you know,
Mhm.
uh, and, uh, and it's a way for you to also perpetuate legacy. And so I wanted to, I asked that question. I started looking at to the market too. I remember looking into all these acquisitions, right? And I saw, for example, what STG did with CAO, General, then STG did with CAO. Now they buy the brand or Cohiba, and they bring someone from outside to be the face of the brand. Uh, and I think it works. You know, I think they're employees of the company, but one day that face might change again, and might be someone else. Like that just happened recently with different companies. Uh, and I asked the following question. I said, what if we can create brands that actually the identity is 100% legitimate. Like we're not bringing any outsider. We're actually creating from its inception an outsider who will be outsider, quote unquote, who will be the face of that brand or will co-own that brand. In order to do that, we cannot be greedy. If it was just about Luciano, why would I invest in developing other brands with other people and co-branding with them and saying, hey, listen, let's create this brand and you own it. I'm not disclosing percentages, but just as hypothetical, let's say tomorrow uh, you want to create a cigar and you come to our company and say, I want to create a brand. And I look at you and say, man, this guy has potential to actually really become a cigar maker. He wants to come to the farms. He wants to learn the process. He wants to learn how to blend. He wants to say the message as the message is. He's not full of shit. He wants to really develop in his business. And I come to this person and I bring under our wings and I teach that person. And then I said, you know what? Let's create this brand. And you co-own this brand. So it's not about me. It's about the brand that we're creating together. And then now that person embraces that brand in a way that she will promote or he will promote for his life because he owns it. And that's going to still be part of our family of brands, because we have an agreement from its inception that we can own that brand together. You can only do this if you're not greedy. You can only do this if you're really willing to kind of give something, abdicate of something. And in our case, for me, it's not even abdication. For me, it's an investment. I believe in this model. I think it's something that not everybody's doing it. I don't know of anyone who's doing it. I know a lot of companies uh, who create small brands and they sell it, or companies that just acquire brands and do like the MBO thing, the management buyout, hire the face of the brand for a while. There's no compete agreements with the business, and then later that brand becomes completely orphaned, and then they have to bring someone else to be the face of it. So what if we can create a brand that we have someone actually as the face of the brand since its inception, and it's still correlated to us? So that's the philosophy of Foreign Affair. So Foreign Affair is born with Michael Donolis and with Frank Cosio as part of owners of the brand with Luciano Cigars, and they became our main launch for TPE, our main launch for the first semester of the year. And it's treated as any brand because we own it as well, but we give the chance for them to tell the story, and the story of the cigar is real too. So there is a reason why that cigar is called Foreign Affair. There is a reason why the blend is the way it is. And there you have this mix of Michael, who is extremely creative, is the guy who's behind the branding and all that stuff. And then you have Frank, who has this amazing palate, who is a super taster, and then you have my role, which is to develop the blend and make the cigar. So all the three together, we are the foreign affair. Completely different people from different backgrounds, and I think we created a very interesting, I would dare to say, unprecedented product.
Now, the other brand that a lot of people talk about within your portfolio is the Maria Lucia, this cigar. So going back to the comment that you made earlier, what sort of story or what sort of message were you trying to convey to the industry with this release?
The message I'm trying to convey with this release is a message of I am tempted to say redemption, but it's not redemption.
Mm-hmm.
It's not redemption. I think that every single human being have a story, and in our lives are consequences of the choices we make, and sometimes consequences of the choices we don't make. The cigar tells the story. First tells the story of my biological mother. I disclosed to you before, I was raised by my grandparents. My mom died when I was only 12 years old. And she would be considered someone that had a very tragic life. And I could say that telling her story is redemptive, but it's not redemptive to her, it's more redemptive to me. It's a way for me to keep her story alive. It's somehow a little bit selfish, but it is at the same time a way to inspire other people to think likewise. The story of the cigar starts when my eldest daughter, which is all connected with your first question because she was part of that trauma that I was telling you before. She had this dream, this nightmare, and she dreamed of a woman. And she's always been an artist. Took me some time to realize that, but when she was only 14 years old, she made this beautiful art, which is actually the cigar band of Maria Lucia.
Yeah, and I don't know if people might see it on this camera, but you can kind of see it with the light going out. But it's very nice artwork. It's unlike a lot of the cigar industry stuff is very dark. So I was immediately drawn to this brand because it's very bright in comparison to most cigar stuff.
Yeah, but she did this drawing after this nightmare. She woke up in the middle of the night, and she comes to our room to me and my wife, and she says, I dreamed of this woman. I've never seen her before, and then she died, and I could not help her, and then she was crying. But anyways, she was 14. Now she's 24. So this was like 10 years ago. 4 years later, the girls, again, I'm old man. You say they're old. I think I'm older than you. But I at my time, we didn't have any pictures. Like there's no cell phone, and whatever pictures you have is because you printed them, professionally somewhere. And I had absolutely no pictures of my mom whatsoever. I was 12, and my girls much less. Never met the grandma, of course, and never saw any picture. So when my daughter turned 18 years old, this is November, we receive a box from my grandmother who passed, my mom's mother, and inside that box, there were several letters that my mom wrote to several people, including to me. And the first item of the box was a picture of her, which was upside down, and all you could read was Maria Lucia 18 years old. And this was the day that my daughter was turning 18. When we flipped the photo, so my daughter comes to cheer, said, "This is the woman that I dreamed 4 years ago." Because this is 4 years fast forward. So this is the woman I dreamed of 4 years ago. I said, "Well, this is your grandmother." And then she went to tears, was super emotional. And then I start looking because she drew that in a piece of paper like that. It was like a half letter paper. And weeks later we found the drawing, and then you put side by side. It's just like there's no way you're not gonna get goosebumps when you put like side by side. It's exactly the same. The silhouette is exactly the same. The nose, the eyebrows, everything. And what's interesting is, for some reason, she did all the shapes and forms of leaves, which was also quite unique. So then she was 18. Then 4 more years passed by. Now we're talking about 2 years ago, and making a cigar using that image was always in the back of my head, and do something to honor her life. I had a friend of mine who it's another crazy story, which I don't think it's too long, and you're gonna edit and cut it out because it's gonna be too long interview. But she just making short. This guy wrote. He I used to work for an investment fund, so I met this guy, a very well-known person. He's a New York bestseller writer. So he writes. He did an interview by the time he was actually. I was living in Brazil and he was there. So he asked some questions about my mom and stuff. And it's funny because the same year that we decided to make the products, the year that he wrote the story about me and my mom and some other stuff. So then that came to my mind. I said, well, I don't want to make the cigar to become, a redemptive story for her. I want to tell the story that there is beauty even in someone who goes through things that she went through. You know, uh, she was extremely intelligent, extremely bright. She never had the opportunity I had to study or anything, but she would learn anything and navigate in any situation, and she would just fill the room anywhere she goes. Like if you ask other family members of stories about her, they tell incredible things, and how lovely she was, how strong she was. So she had this amazing personality, and because of my synesthesia, my memories of my mom, it was not about much of her appearance or just stories, because we didn't have much stories. But I remember the texture of her skin. I remember the sound of her voice, her smell. I remember the smell she had on her hair because she used to smoke. So I remember that kind of tobacco smell in her hair, and and her smile. So I had all this kind of sensorial memories of her. And then the challenge was, how can I make a cigar that actually will actually resemble those characteristics? Uh, of her voice, of her personality, of her skin, so all that was present into the development of that specific product. And I think that the acceptance and the success it is today probably one of our best sellers, if not the best seller.
Mhm.
I think the reason why is um, because it's a true story, and I think humanity is craving true stories. I think you are, I am. We all tired of the bullshit that we hear everywhere. We're tired of the politicians. We're tired of the religious leaders. We're tired of circles of friends that they're just kind of making shit up and they think it's funny. I think everybody is like craving truth, and when you present that, they never let go. And that's why I think uh, I actually had a case the other day. A guy was in Esteli. It's one of those guys. There's several of them, by the way. They come to Esteli, they travel on their own, don't tell anybody, and they keep knocking at factories' doors just to kind of grab some smokes or trying to kind of do tours and stuff. But this guy came to me wanting us to produce a cigar for him without, he didn't give me any notice, or he just show up at the factory. And then he came with his drawings of the cigar ring, all the ideas he had, and the packaging, and he tried to prove to me that this would be a huge success. He was going to distribute himself door to door if necessary. And look at his passion. I like that. I open the door because when I see someone with that level of passion, I wanna find out what he's about. So I talked to the guy, and then I asked him a very simple question: as why? I'm not going to mention the brand, but why you call this brand? And then I hear things like, oh, because it's cool,
No.
or because, see the colors. When people look at the colors, they got captivated by because this pops in a shelf, because, it's going to be a huge success. It's super attractive.
Mhm.
So that kind of threw me off completely. He might watch this, and I'm telling you, brother, I didn't take a project just because of that. I can't make a cigar. I can't make a product just because it looks pretty. I just can't.
Yeah, I think why is one of those questions that it's always hard to answer for many reasons, just because it takes you to a personal place. But like you said, it kind of, when you asked him that question, it kind of showed that, again, it was kind of tied to the wrong reasons, which is just, oh, it's gonna pop, it's gonna make it big and stuff
I'm
like
not
that.
gonna. Yeah, and listen, I'm not trolling anybody. This is true to every, and I understand that, okay? Because I'm in the same place. My Peter RCO came to me and said, "Hey, listen, what's going to be the launch of PCA? So we need to have the 2 products a year being launched and blah blah blah." And I understand there's that pressure, you know. Uh, but all I can say is, Ben, just pray, bro. Just pray that we will have a story, a real story to tell. You know, uh, because if I don't have it, we just not launch it. And as much as can economically, or I remember actually from, because I said, like I told you, I used to be commissioned to make cigars, so I'm fine with it. You know, I'm not saying that I'm a purist that I will never make a cigar if I get contracted for. I did this my entire life. And very recently, I had phone calls from people saying, "Listen, just give me anything, just give me anything." You know, so we do have blends, and if I am not attached to the brand, if someone comes to me and say, "I need a good blend," and there's nothing to do with me, yeah, I'll give the guy a blend, and then he can do whatever he wants. But this will never be distributed by us. So I cannot stand. I cannot go to a cigar shop and people ask me about the blend, and I say it's because it's sexy, or I just shut up and make a dumb face and change the subject. Like, I can't talk about actually the reason why, because I don't fucking know. And then I jump to, "Oh, this cigar is really good. I'm gonna love the wrapper. It's the San Andres, and they're gonna love this, gonna love that." Um, but why? Why you build the stage profile? Those are questions that they're very important that I have the answer for.
So at this point in the show, I like to kind of end this part of the interview with 2 basic questions I ask of every guest. The first of those questions is, do you have a personal philosophy that you live by?
Hmm. Yeah, but it's not one philosophy. I think if I have to reduce to one, uh, I think every single decision that we make needs to come from a place of love, and it's not how you love pizza, and not how you love your daughter or your family. when I say a place of love, it means I need to understand where someone is coming from. So when I'm saying that I'm perfect, actually, it is a philosophy of life to me because it's hard to do it, and it's hard for me to do it. That's why it's a philosophy of life. So most of the times I probably don't do it. Is when, let's say, someone come at me and attack me verbally or physically, or I need to know where he's coming from. What's going to his mind to say what he said? What kind of pain is this guy going through to say these things, or believe in these things, or be so aggressive? So what's behind it? So I think the biggest philosophy of life probably that I have today, and in which I think my grandfather taught me a lot about it, is try to understand the why people behave the way they do, why they're saying things they are, why they're hurting you, why they're doing these things, because knowing the why, uh, it's a game changer for you, for your peace of mind, because then you find comfort. Oh, okay, I understand. He lost his mom, or he's fighting his marriage, or he's struggling financially, or he's struggling in his relationships. And usually, we attack people that are closer to us too. So that's why sometimes our family get our worst, because we love them. We know that they're not going to leave you. So then we say things that we're not supposed to say sometimes. But so I think that philosophy, but there are many. But I would say that try to understand the why behind behavior.
And to round out the questions for today, the last question I love to ask people is, I want you to finish this sentence. So Luciano Meirelles is
A tough person. I think I acquire a very thick skin. I'm tough, man. I can endure things, uh, and that gives me the capacity to, maybe the strength to filter things like I just mentioned to you about my philosophy of life. It's actually an acquired strength, right? It's not something that you have to keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it, keep doing it. I think I feel sometimes that uh, we all get defeated, right? Sometimes defeated in a sense, not that you are competing all the time, but like we get defeated by life, we get defeated by things not going the way we want to. But sometimes I feel like the only thing that really can defeat me is death. Just, man, I'll stand up. I'll face it. I'll 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 take that and try to turn something beautiful. I'll try to to get that substance and see if I can actually uh, could do some alchemy and change that into something that actually is it's positive.
Oh, great. Can you tell people, or those who aren't watching this, what website they need to visit, what social media they need to follow in order to keep up with you and your company?
Yeah, you can go to Luciano Cigars, lucianocigars.com. Instagram is Luciano Cigars. My personal Instagram is Luciano Meirelles. It's my name. Um, but I I'm very thankful for. I don't know if it's time to say goodbye, but I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be in your interview, Antoine. And I like that this became way more about the person and the cigar. So I think selling cigars is just a consequence of making good products and people getting to know your product, but mostly getting to know who you are. So I think you're doing a great job by giving the industry the opportunity, the retailers, the consumers, your audience, the opportunity to get to know the makers and the people behind the cigars and the brands. So
Well, thank you. Like I said, I was excited to have you on, and I was very happy with the conversation we had together. I know I've learned so much about you. So now when I see you out maybe at PCA this year, I'll feel like I know a lot more about Luciano and about, the products that you make. So I want to thank you for coming on today's episode. I want to thank people for watching. And if you missed any of this episode or you want to see any of the other 120 some episodes that we've done up to this point, you can catch all the episodes on Deep Cuts Live